Yung 1:30, Jude. Nasa ilahang katong confirmation kay wa.
Hello, we're here for the Violence Against Women and Girls, Changing Manifestations and Context webinar. We'll be starting at 1:30. We are already live streamed in Facebook, so we'll just do some technical check with our speakers. I think Ma'am Bing is already here. Miss Bing, sound check po. Miss Bing.
Okay, good afternoon.
Okay yung sound? Yeah, you've tried your screen sharing?
Yeah, naririnig kita. And then I will try my ano? Okay.
We'll just try.
Sandali. Sharing. Cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Okay po. So we'll just ano na lang po, enable once you're speaking na po. Later
na lang. Attorney Tuay pala yung sorry, Attorney Tuay. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning. Can I check if Ma'am Lisa is also in the Zoom room? Wala pa si Ma'am Lisa. Siguro nagko-connect pa. And our moderator, Leah.
Lay.
Sorry, may kausap lang ako. Hello?
Okay, so iset up mo lang yung camera a bit so that your full face can be seen. Okay, that's better. So, okay. Do you need to share your screen, Leah, before? Or hindi naman?
Hello? Sorry, ano yun?
Do you need to share your screen or hindi na before we start?
Hello? Okay na? Nadidinig?
Yes, may echo lang konti, but we can hear you.
Kasi magkasama kami ni Miss Bing sa room, kaya nag-echo.
Much better pag ano, magkahiwala yung two devices para hindi siya mag-echo. Oh yeah. Or you can use earphones pala.
Wala akong dalang earphones. May isang saan dun sa
Why? Malayo kami sa isa't isa. Kahit na?
Wala pa si Miss Lisa.
Wala pa siya.
Nandito na ako. Good afternoon.
Hi Lisa, good afternoon.
Kailangan na bang mag-camera?
We still have time pa naman. I'm also checking.
Oo nga. Kailangan ba mag-face mask ako?
Ako wala. Si Attorney Borgie is not yet here, no? We have pala sign language interpreters on board, dalawa.
Good afternoon po.
Yan, si KZ. And what's the other name, KZ? Si
Amy po.
Amy, okay.
Hi.
Okay, concurrent. 1:27, 30 minutes. So before we start, 3 minutes. Before we start, I'm just going to have some reminders. If we're not speaking, reminder lang to have our mics on mute. And at some points of the presentation, because we have sign language interpreters, and this is streamed via FB, we'll be pinning the video of the sign language interpreters instead of the speakers, so in the middle, so that our deaf participants who are watching via Facebook will be able to follow the discussion. We're also requesting the speakers to to speak a little bit slowly so that makakatch up din yung ating sign language interpreter. This is the second or the third Kwentuhan series from the CHR, and today it's titled Violence Against Women and Girls, Its Changing Manifestations and Context. We have three speakers, and we have our moderator for today. I will be turning you over to her, our Development Management Officer from the Center for Gender Equality, Women's Human Rights, si Ms. Lisa Garcia. So Lisa. Audio, you're on mute.
Hello, good afternoon sa lahat. Ako po si Lisa Garcia from the Gender Equality Women's Human Rights Center. Welcome sa ating Kwentuhan series. Yung topic natin for the day is Violence Against Women and Girls, Its Changing Manifestation in Context. So, we will start with, pwede na mag-start? Ready na ba lahat? Yes, okay. So we'll start with the opening message from the Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights. She's the Focal Commissioner for Gender and LGBTI. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Commissioner Karen Gomez-Lambit.
Thank you, Leia. Can you all hear me? Okay. Good afternoon to everyone, and allow me to just give you my opening remarks for today's forum. So the United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women. This includes coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. Violence against women is a form of gender-based violence that, according to the World Health Organization in 2017, it said that this is a major public health problem, while according to the United Nations, a grave human rights violation. At least 1 in 5 of the world's female population has been physically or sexually abused, and many more are subject to severe, sustained, or repeated acts of violence. Violence against women and girls negatively impact women and girls' overall well-being and hinders their full participation in society. It has far-reaching consequences affecting their families, the community, and the country at large. It has immense costs, from the greater healthcare and legal expenses and losses in productivity, impacting national budgets and overall development. Worldwide, it has been estimated that violence against women is as serious a cause of death and incapacity among women of reproductive age, such as cancer, and a greater cause of ill health than traffic accidents and malaria combined. VAWG is exacerbated, of course, by cultural, economic, ideological, political, religious, social, and environmental factors. Among other things, it is compounded in the contexts of displacement, migration, militarization, armed conflict, violent extremism, and terrorism, contexts that are very relevant to most Filipino women and girls. And today, of course, we have the pandemic or the public health crisis that we are now facing. So while domestic violence remains the most prevalent form of VAWG, in this digital age and at this time of crisis, it has changing manifestations and contexts. It has become more and more a pervasive form of human rights violation. With the aid of information and communication technologies, forms and methods in the perpetration of VAWG has become more advanced, more sophisticated, and more complex. Today's Kwentuhan will expound on VAWG as exacerbated by our technological factors. This is second to our series of capacity building activities for internal staff, but we have now expanded our reach to our partner non-government organizations. So I welcome you all here. We invited 3 speakers who will provide us with the different insights given the evolving forms of violence against women and girls. But before we proceed, let me underscore that the framing of violence against women as a gender-based human rights violation recognizes that violence is the result of structural and deep-rooted discrimination. Therefore, it is a legal and moral obligation to take all necessary measures and reforms to eradicate gender stereotypes that condone or perpetuate gender-based violence and reinforce the structural inequalities among gender. The Philippines, as a state party to the CEDAW, or the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and other human rights instruments, has the primary obligation to take affirmative action to prevent and protect Filipino women and girls from all forms of gender-based violence, including violence against women, penalizing perpetrators of violent acts, and recompensing victims of violence. So as Gender Ombud, the Commission condemns all forms of violence against women and will do its best as a national human rights institution. And as mandated by the Constitution, we commit to undertake initiatives to promote and protect women and girls from violence. So maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo. Particularly, of course, thank you to the Foundation for Media Alternatives, its Executive Director, Ms. Lisa Garcia, our speaker. Of course, another speaker is Chairperson Virgie Laksa Suarez of Kaisaka. And of course, our very own Ms. Bing Diaz of the Commission's Child Rights Center. Special thanks also, and the special shout out goes out to our sign language interpreters, Ms. Casey and Amy, so that our participants from the deaf community can fully participate in this forum. So maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo, and I look forward to our kwentuhan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Com Karen, for the opening message. We'll now proceed to recognizing the participants before we proceed to the discussion proper. We would like to recognize Senate Electoral Tribunal Representative, Bohol Girl Scouts, Zamboanga Participants, FMA, and CHR Regional Offices representatives. We also would like to recognize our Director Basas. He is the Director of the HRCMO, or Human Rights Centers of the Commission on Human Rights. We would like to clarify some terms. When you say context, according to Cambridge Dictionary, it's the context, the circumstances that form a setting for an event, statement, or idea in terms of which can be fully understood and assessed. So basically, sinasagot niya yung tanong, ano-ano ang mga pagkakataon para masabing ito ay isang online violence. And then manifestations, according to Cambridge Dictionary, again, it's outward or perceptible indication or materialization. Paano mo malalaman ang biktima ka ng online violence? So yun yung magiging focus ng discussions natin this morning. So we are very happy na pinaunlakan tayo ng ating tatlong masigasig na mga resource persons this morning. Our main presenter, she specializes in women's rights in ICT, has an undergraduate degree in sociology from the University of the Philippines, a master degree in international relations from Kyiv State University, and a master's degree in women development studies from the University of the Philippines. She's the current executive director of Foundations for Media Alternatives. And then our reactors, hindi ko pala na-mention, she's Miss Lisa Garcia. And then our reactors, she's a graduate of liberal arts from College of Holy Spirit and a Juris Doctor from Arellano University School of Law. Ito ay hindi namin masyadong kilala. She received various accolades as Child Rights Advocates in Child Rights Center. She's the Deputy Chief of the Child Rights Center of the Commission on Human Rights. So nasabi ko na hindi namin masyadong kilala at nahirapan kami mag-invite. Miss Dean Diaz. And then our another reactor, hindi din namin masyadong kilala. She's a graduate of Communication Arts at the University of Santo Tomas, Philippines, graduate of Bachelor of Laws at Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, Legal Advocates for Worker Services. She is the current Secretary General at Kilusan para sa Pambansang Demokrasya and Chairperson at Pagkakaisa ng Kababaihan para sa Kalayaan o Kaisa Ka. She's a lawyer and women's rights activist. Ang makakasama natin ay si Miss Virginia Laksa Suarez. So without further ado, sisimulan na po natin yung discussions. Miss Lisa Garcia will present VAWG in the digital age. What are these mediums and platforms? How it takes place and what are its manifestations? Kaya na po, Ma'am Lisa.
Yes, maraming salamat, Leia. Will I be the one sharing my screen or kayo na?
Para alam nyo kung paano yung facing.
Okay. So let me just... Okay, so I hope everyone can see my screen already. So again, good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to thank the Commission on Human Rights for this invitation to be part of this Kwentuhan sa CHR. I think this is the second time that we have been invited to share with you some of the things that we know, that some of the things that we do at the Foundation for Media Alternatives. The discussion about violence against women and girls is always timely kasi nandiyan pa naman siya, and we know that so long as we haven't eradicated violence against women and girls, then we can't really say that we have achieved women's rights, that it has become a reality. And just like the COVID-19 pandemic, we can say that violence against women and girls is like a pandemic. It's an epidemic. It's a pandemic. It spreads across different countries, and it's something that has to be stopped. Para din siyang virus, no? So anyway, so today I will be sharing with you some of the work and the experiences that we have at FMA, and hopefully this can help enhance our knowledge and understanding of violence against women and girls in the digital age, so that we can better address also the issue of this online gender-based violence. So I will no longer define what violence against women is, because Karen already gave you the UN definition of what violence against women is. No? But we have to remember that as societies undergo demographic, political, and economic changes, as well as social and cultural shifts, many things happen, many things change, and this include the emergence of different or new forms of violence against women as well. For instance, when we had the internet, So there was a new site, a new medium that has become the site of violence against women. Naging online na siya. Let's say pornography happens already online, unlike before. And then you have games happening online. It has become sexist. So it's all through the use of information and communications technology. So yeah, so when we talk about online gender-based violence, by the way, I will be using online violence against women and girls, online gender-based violence. Na pag, baka I'll be using them in the same manner, no? So anyway, when we talk about online gender-based violence, it's the same lang yung definition with violence against women, no? It's just that this is now committed, assisted, and aggravated, whether in part or fully, through the use of information and communications technology. So it can be through the use of our mobile phones, yung mga smartphones, through the use of the internet, social media, yung sa email, pati yung SMS natin, etc. And usually, this affects women disproportionately. If you recall the statistics that were given, ang VAW naman talaga, violence against women, and usually, mga babae talaga ang nakakaranas nito. Okay. Now, within when we talk about online VAW, there are different factors that, there's a combination of factors when we look at how it manifests. Number one, of course, sometimes it would be the same as offline VAW, no? Physical, that which is physical. So the perpetrators, when you talk about the perpetrators, it may be an intimate partner, it can even be your parents, it can be people you don't know, strangers, it can be the community or the state, same as offline VAW, di ba? But when you talk about online violence against women and girls already, there's the technology platform that's being used by those who commit it, by the perpetrators. So it can be, your gadgets, it can be the social media platforms, the website, the use of webcams, etc. And then the nature of the violence, it is online already. There's online harassment, stalking, the usual sexual assault, violence, targeting communities, but happening at a different platform. And the types of violent acts there would be threats, blackmail, stealing of your identity, surveillance happens also online, and there's plenty of unauthorized recording and distribution of photos and images, videos as well. The same as offline VAW, there's harm faced by the victim survivor, whether it's physical, psychological, sexual, economic harm, or harm to your privacy. But then the degrees would vary, no? And then, of course, the social we also have to consider the social and bodily characteristics of the victim survivors. Sabi nila, and actually this is also based on our research at FMA, it's usually young women, those below the age of 30, who are usually the ones who fall victim online, no? Sila yung mga nagiging victims ng online gender-based violence. So, yeah, since we're talking about online, offline violence, let me give you a comparison case. So for both cases, you have actress A, parang Betamax scandal, no? And then actress B, internet scandal. If you look at it, the other one happened in 1990, the other one is in 2015. But both of them, so they had consent, ang magiging scenario na if both of these actresses, the event happened, of course, at different times, but both of them had consensual sex with a partner who's equally popular, perhaps a celebrity like them as well. And perhaps they may have agreed to the sexual act being recorded. But before the internet, if you record, let's say, the act, Then you record it in video, save it in Betamax, and then to distribute it, you have to make several copies, di ba, ng Betamax tapes. Yung mga millennials dito, I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is like the smaller version of the VHS tape, no? So you have to make several copies and then send them perhaps via mail to other people so that they will have a copy of it, they can watch it over. So you need to have a Betamax player to watch it. So hindi ganong kadami yung makakakita. But if you compare it to a similar case happening, let's say 2015, you record it as well on video, you can save it in the USB, you can save it in your, let's say, laptop, in your computer. But if you want to distribute it, you just attach the file and send it to other people. You can send it to one person and then that person can send it to other people. And ang bilis ng distribution, unlike yung sa offline VAW, no? And we also have to consider the other factors. Of course, number one is the anonymity. Sometimes you do not know already who is sharing the, let's say, that video, sex video that you had. Of course, it can also, even sa offline VAW, dun sa case ni Actress A, pwede rin na hindi naman alam. There's also that factor of anonymity. Pero ilan lang to. And then the issue of automation. With technology, it's so easy. No? Naka-save sa laptop mo, let's say, and then you just click it and then it's shared already. Ang bilis. You don't need a postman. Dati kasi postman yan to deliver the Betamax tape because you just click with one click of a button, then you are able to send it already to not just one person but several people. And it's not as expensive. That's why there's the third factor, affordability. Halos lahat naman, madami naman ngayon. Hindi naman of course lahat, no? Pero madami ang merong gadgets and it's easy to, to watch this, let's say, sex videos, this scandals that are being shared online. And then even if I am here in the Philippines, I can share that video to somebody who is in another country, in several countries actually. Unlike if it's, if you're distributing it dati nung 1990s, so international and mail pa yan. So magastos talaga. And then the way you propagate it, you can save it, you can send it to porn sites, you can just post it in social media accounts. So ang dami, or you can share it via Bluetooth, etc. So ang dami, the manner of propagation is different already. So yun yung makita natin na kaibahan na with what was before and now. Now, there's this group in Latin America. They're called luchadoras and social tick. So they did a study and they said that there are 13 manifestations of gender-based violence using technology. Of course, baka mas marami pa tayong maisip dito. So I will not have a separate presentation for each. Mabilisan na lang siguro ito. I'll just define what each is and give a few example. I don't know if let's make it bigger. Yeah. So number one here, unauthorized access and controlling access. So this is when somebody is perhaps blocking your access to your account. Okay, ang example nito, let's say you have a partner who controls your mobile phone. It's either hindi ka binibigyan ng phone, so nakikigamit ka lang. So that person, if you have conversations there, then nakikita niya. So, or perhaps because he knows your password, even if you have your own phone, then he can look at what you have been, kung ano, let's say if you're chatting with a friend, etc. So kinokontrol talaga niya. If he doesn't want you to communicate with another person, then pwede niyang burahin yung mga messages doon. Something like that. As against yung second, the control and manipulation of information. An example of this would be like if you're, let's say you have a Facebook account, if you're a woman, you have a Facebook account and it was hacked, then the control of that account will no longer be yours. So ibang tao na, so that person can say, can start saying, oh, you know, I'm open to dating other people, yung ganyan. So medyo iba na yung tono kasi hindi na ikaw yung nagko-control nung information mo, somebody else has it, no? So the third would be impersonation or identity theft. I think familiar tayo dyan. This July, if you remember, there was that thing about Facebook cloning. So if somebody clones your account and pretends to be you, that is already impersonation and identity theft. So yung pag-share nila, di ba, recently yung sa in-impersonate nila si Catriona Gray, nilagyan nila, shinare nila yung nude photos, no? Sabi, si Catriona daw yon. So in-impersonate, but she's not the one. Of course, the next one is surveillance and stalking. So the person is monitored constantly. Parang merong nakasunod palagi sa'yo siguro na surveillance camera, no? An example of this would be, let's say, men, kasi if you're familiar, may mga commercially available spyware. Of course, dapat hindi siya sinesell commercially, no? It should be to governments only. But sometimes some people have access to that and they use it to spy on their partners. Some men do that. There are cases of that. I don't know if you're familiar, for instance, in Korea, may mga maliliit din silang mga spy cameras, nilalagay nila sa mga CR. And that is how they spy on women, no? And nakakatakot siya, eh. And then the next is about discriminatory speech. This is abusive speech against other women. Let's say, ang isa siguro na pwede natin gamitin example dito ay, kunwari, yung kay Jennifer Laude. Naalala ko lang kasi, di ba, yung kaso ni Pemberton ay lumutang na naman. So, kahit nung namatay na siya, ang dami pa ring abusive speech that were hurled against her, saying, kasi hindi ka naman talagang babae, malandi ka kasi, that's why you deserve to die. So, things like that. So, minumura-mura siya. So, ganun siya. And then the issue of, the next would be harassment, the other manifestation. So, this is repeated, unsolicited acts against a person, which are intrusive siya, disturbing, and at the same time, maybe threatening. So, siguro, one could be, siguro yung mga attacks, kunwari kay Kaki Pangilinan, sabihin sa kanya, hindi ka naman kasing ganda nung ate mo, hindi ka sexy, why are you pretending to be this? Yung sana ma-rape ka, yung mga ganyan na issues, no? And then, what's next? Threats. Yung iba dito, by the way, medyo nag-overlap din to, yung mga manifestations nito. So when we talk about threats, it can be verbal or written. It can be through images or videos, no, with violent and sexually aggressive or threatening tones. And there is that intention to harm a person, not just the person, perhaps the family and friends as well. For instance, I remember the case of Rene Karunungan before, no, because she openly said she's not voting for a lazy president, and she was really attacked. She received a lot of threats. Sinasabi sa kanya, pag dumaan ka dito sa amin, sasabuyan ka namin ng asido, or pag ma-rape ka sana, yung mga ganyan ba na so yung kaso na yon is still ongoing, no? And then the non-consensual sharing of private information. So hindi ka naman nagbigay ng consent mo, and yet people are sharing your data, perhaps your images. I remember here the case of, let's say, the example that we gave. Let's say, even the case of, let's say, Katrina Halili, na merong sex video noon. Hindi naman, she may have consented to the act, she may have consented to the recording, but the distribution, hindi naman. And then this reminds me as well of remember some high schools and colleges, the boys are sharing this Google Drive where they share photos of their friends or perhaps girlfriends na medyo sexy yung mga photos or perhaps videos, yung mga ganyan. So this falls under this. Hindi naman kasi sila nagpaalam doon sa mga kababaihan, and yet they are sharing it among themselves. At di ba ginagawa pa nila, if you want to view this video, this photo, the images, then you also share a photo. So hanap naman yung mga lalaki na i-share din nila. And then of course the issue of extortion, ang daming nangyayari niyan. Pag nakipag-break yung lalaki, sige, if you do not, pag di ka nakipagbalikan sa akin, then I will show our video to your parents, to other people, etc. Sometimes they even ask for money, no? It has to be in exchange of something. The next is manifestation here is disparagement. So this is like defamation, no? Smearing. It undermines the credibility of a person, yung career niya. And this reminds me of, let's say, kasi birthday ni Senator Laila kahapon, no? So naalala ko siya dito, nang lumabas yung fake na sex video. Sinabi nila, siya yan eh, si Senator Laila yan, pero hindi naman. So talagang sinira nila yung karakter ni senadora na sinabi ng samang babae yan. So that's what they did. And then issues of technology. The next is technology-related sexual abuse and exploitation. Again, the sharing of unwanted photos and images ay ginagamit din. Kung usually ito yung mga nakikipag-break na ayokong mag-break tayo. Sige, pag hindi ka mag-share din ako ng kailangan sumunod ka sa akin. Yung ganon. So it's also again against the will of usually the girl, the woman. It can also be yung mga usapin ng OSEC, no? Online sexual exploitation of children. And then attacks on communication channels. Sometimes there are groups, women's groups, feminist groups, na inaatake nila let's say yung website because they don't want to see that anymore. So they do punta sila ng punta sa site para ma-down yung site. So that's the distributed denial of service, no? Dun sa site. Because they want to prevent these women from continuing with their work. And then the last here is omission by regulatory actors. So we also have to look at sometimes there's the lack of interest, the acknowledgement of or action of actors like authorities, internet intermediaries, or pwedeng institutions. Pwede naman nilang when you have a complaint, for instance, sa Facebook or sa Twitter, kasi may lumabas, let's say, na incriminating photo or video mo and they did not act on it, then they are complicit in the act, in the violence that is happening to the woman. So you may perhaps you have other ideas. Meron pa siguro ibang manifestations na hindi kasama dito, but these are just some that were shared with Luchadoras, no? So how common is online gender-based violence? So FMA for the last several years have been mapping cases of online gender-based violence through media sources. And in our last tally, because we do this every 6 months, we do an analysis of the cases that we have mapped. If last year kasi, we were only able to map 49 cases, no? Of course, hindi naman lahat yan. This is only what we see online and those that were reported to us. But this year alone, from January to June, so first half of the year, 64 cases na agad ang na-report. So this is during the period of the pandemic. You can see a 30% increase. So yeah, and then again, if you look at the figures here, talagang yung madalas siyang nangyayari. Usually, again, this happens to the younger women, maybe because they are the ones who are often using gadgets. They're the ones online. Usually it happens in the urban cities. And commonly used gadgets would be the mobile phones, online chats, and videos. Some of the perpetrators, most of the perpetrators actually are strangers, although there are those that are known to them. Okay, we need to discuss violence against women because, of course, a lot of our rights are violated. Online and offline, we have our rights. Hindi naman siya nawawala. That's why we should not let it pass. So there's the issue of our freedom, the right to freedom of expression and self-representation. it also violates our freedom of participation and the right to association, the right to our bodily integrity and self-determination, as well as security, and our right to privacy. So na-violate yung mga rights na yon. Because even if you want, sometimes if you are being attacked online, for instance, then there's that chilling effect. Sometimes you tend not to speak anymore, not to express yourself anymore because of the attacks that you receive online. So so in that sense, na-violate ka na, no? And then when people start sharing, for instance, a lot of your personal information, so that there's the privacy right, etc. That's being violated already. And it's important to talk about the harms of violence against women. The harms do not happen only in the physical world, but as well as in the online world. So we'll be talking about, there's emotional and psychological violence, because those who experience violence, even online, suffer depression, fear, anxiety. They even report nightmares. It's continuous. So sometimes if it's really worse, it can even lead to suicide. There are cases like that. So another harm is the economic, in terms of yung economic loss, no? For the woman. There's the example of this is I remember yung si Katrina Halili, when her case happened. For several months, she wasn't able to get a job because she didn't want to go out. Because of that, there was that the stigma, and then that fear also, the anxiety within her. So mahirap maghanap ng ng trabaho. And yeah, the other thing is increased physical violence also. That's another impact of online gender-based violence. So you can be blackmailed into submission by an intimate partner, or you can be abused physically. It can be both physical and digital, no? And then the social isolation. Say, kumalat yung video ng isang babae, and then some people would tend to distance themselves from the woman. No? You're being rejected. And what is bad is sometimes it's even your family and friends who distance themselves from you because of what you experienced. No? Okay, so we need to challenge, actually, there are myths about online gender-based violence, and we have to challenge these myths. Number one, some people would say, palagi lalo na dati, palagi namin nadidinig ito. Ngayon hindi na masyado. Violence that takes place online is not real violence. Kasi naman online daw eh. It's not you, because your physical self is different from your online persona. But now, you can't really, may blurring pa ba? You are also your physical and your digital self. So you cannot say that it's not real violence. Some people would say, no, it's not physical, it's not violence that is not physical, is not as damaging. It's not true. Not dahil wala ka lang napasa-pasa, that does not mean that yung harm that you experienced is any less, because it could be more. The emotional, the psychological trauma in you could be worse actually than what is physical. And then the other one is, I would just like to share this. Leia, pakisabihan kung malapit na akong mag-answer time. Sorry. And then I would just like to share this to you, this comic strip, no? Na some people don't really understand what is online and offline. And yeah, if you look at it, so nag-report yung babae sa police na I was threatened several times. Okay, file a report. Hindi, oo, sa tweet kasi ang dami nito. Sabi, di naman totoo yung violence eh. So it's not true, because that's still violence. There was still a threat. And what is online can be translated offline into the physical world. We also have to break the myth that it's always the woman's fault. Palagi na lang kasalanan ng kababaihan yan. So we know this from the case of dun sa kaso ni Kaki and si Ben Tulfo, no? Bakit ba kailangan na kasalanan ng babae yan? Nagpakita ka lang ng konting flesh ay kasalanan mo na yan, whether it's in the physical or ipinost mo lang online, kasalanan mo. You're not inviting any rape. It's the rapist's fault and not the woman's fault, actually. So, given all this, what can we do? So, medyo bilisan ko na, no? Of course, there are already initiatives being done by other groups. FMA in 2016 created its own application, mobile application. It's called Action VAW. I think it's still available on Android. The PCW in partnership with Technological Institute of the Philippines, TIP, they also came up with their application on VAW in 2017. So both these applications would have yung mga tips, medyo makakatulong ito because it tells you what violence against women is all about. I think yung sa PCW, you can even, may press yatang button kung if you are in danger, no? For emergency call. And then of course, the other thing that we can do as women, as individuals, is to, at the personal level, practice also digital security, communication safety is on our part. FMA, for its part, has published several infographics, tips on how to make yourself safe online. And then we also conduct digital security trainings for women and girls. So, ayan. And then, there are also campaigns, platforms, movements, hashtags. I think we're familiar with this. FMA for the longest time, we've been part of the Take Back the Tech campaign, where we reclaim ICTs in order to help end violence against women. So there was also this campaign before on the I Don't Forward Violence. So if you receive anything that is violent in nature, don't share it already with other people. There's the Me Too campaign, of course, that's global, but at the local level, the hashtag Babae Ako, the hashtag Bantay Bastos campaigns, the hashtag Iha Ako. These are all helpful, no? Because they tell us what women are experiencing. Women themselves are talking about their experiences at pumapalag sila. They're speaking out against violence that is happening to them. Of course, it is always the duty of the state as the duty bearer to protect, again, to respect, protect, and fulfill our rights. And this would include also addressing the underlying causes of violence against women. Ma'am Karen mentioned it, no? Including ensuring that women do not experience discrimination and in order to enjoy their rights. And this can be also through the passage of laws that can prevent violence and abuse against women. Of course, we have laws related to violence against women and girls. I will no longer tackle them. Baka mahagip na ni Attorney Virgito, no? or ni Ding mamaya. But definitely there are laws that we can use if we experience violence against women. Education is important. As early as from early childhood onwards, I think we should educate young people, especially young boys, not to harass women, to be respectful. So there can be classes or on gender sensitivity, on gender equality, especially now that we have online education. I think they should be also included. And then we also have to remember the role of intermediaries. We're not paying for the social media platforms, no? But they collect a lot of information from us. They should also be accountable as to how they handle the data that we provide them. They should also respect our rights, so that when we have complaints, let's say with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram, whatever, they should act on them as well. And this would include also even the telcos that we have. No? And then, I know, of course, siningit ko lang to, if we need access to remedies, meron namang inilabas ang gender ombud. I think there's this guideline to end gender-based violence. No? This is very useful. Yeah, and of course, if we need to address online gender-based violence, we need to document also, especially if in the end you want to file a case. Document the case. Minsan gusto mong burahin, that sometimes you have to take snapshots of it. Wag lang yung pinaka, let's say, kung threatening remark yun, wag lang yung threat itself, but include the metadata na nandun. Kailan siya nangyari, anong oras, anong platform. Document that, monitor, does it still continue to happen, and then report it to authorities kung kinakailangan, and then file a case. So if you need to file a case, there are authorities, especially if it's in the digital space. There's the Philippine National Police and with their anti-cybercrime group, the ACG. So the numbers are here, the National Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice. Pwede naman tayong mag-report doon. If you're being repeatedly attacked, so well, consider seeking redress. And there are laws that we can use to help us so that we can familiarize ourselves with ano ba yung pwedeng ikaso. And then evidences, they're important. And then also the support. You need a trusted friend or perhaps a family member. Kailangan natin yun eh. The emotional support is very important. It's very valuable, especially when you are filing a case. So I think this is the last one I have. So maybe if there are some portions that I missed, or if you have questions later on, you can just have it during the open forum. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Liz. Ulitin ko lang, highlight ni Ms. Lisa na ang changing manifestations and the context of VAWG. Sabi niya, it's technologically mediated. And basically, may similarity siya with offline form of VAWG. There are degrees that also vary. There are social and bodily characteristics. Pero yung pagkakaiba, basically, yung factors of anonymity and automation. Pag sinabi natin anonymity, yung hindi mo kilala kung sinong may gawa, mahirap i-track. At saka kung automation, easy to disseminate. Yung access as well as ang propagation is very easy. And then she highlighted na basically yung victims of VAWG, this changing form of violence, are young women. Basically kasi sila yung gumagamit ng online platforms. So she also highlighted 13 manifestations, at besides 13 manifestations, mas marami pa daw na pwedeng manifestations ng VAWG online. Ngayong pandemic, basically tumaas yung VAWG, and then most of the perpetrators, sabi niya, are strangers. Maraming karapatan ang nababiolate yung online violence. That includes freedom of expression and right to privacy. And then yung impact nito ay hindi malayo or nagkakaiba dun sa physical violence, emotional or other forms of violence na offline. So yung myths, sabi niya, ito yung challenge na kailangan nating harapin. Isa sa mga myths na na-mention niya na there's no harm with using online platform, or there's no harm with online VAWG. And isa pang myth, yung kasalanan ng babae yung pagiging victim ng violence online. Kailangan alam ng ating mga kababaihan at ating mga kabataan kung paano i-address yung issue. It is the duty of the state to protect women's human rights. At the same time, education is very important. She also underscored na very important din yung role of intermediaries. And yung addressing GBV, it is important to document, monitor, report, and file a case. Okay, we will now proceed with our next speaker. She will present or provide insights on how children can be protected from this virtual form of violence, including how do we limit them from the use of media technologies and platforms, how the virtual activities and friends can be monitored whenever their use of technologies and media platforms is almost impossible to limit or regulate, and how do we educate them, yung manifestations of VAWG, encouraged to speak up whenever this happens to them. So without further ado, papakilala ko po ang ating next speaker, si Ms. Bing Diaz.
Okay. Good afternoon po. Mula po sa Child Rights Center ng Komisyon sa Karapatang Pantao. Magandang hapon. This afternoon, I was asked to discuss po, how or what are the current manifestations of gender based violence for women and girls during this time of nasa digital age na tayo. So nung sinubukan ko, kailan ba nagsimula ang digital age sa mundo? So parang nakita ko ng mga 1971 dahil nga naging accessible ang computer or yung mga iba't iba pa pong methodologies or platforms, And I have decided to focus on one particular issue na ngayon ay talagang nararamdaman po ng mga young women or mga batang babae or girls. Ito po yung ang tawag po namin dito, yung online sexual abuse and exploitation of children. So ngayon po ay isa ito sa siguro maglalarawan kung ano ang nangyayaring karahasan sa mga batang babae sa Pilipinas. So my presentation, I divided it into 3 parts. First would be the current situation. It's a very short presentation. It's an 8 slides and I divided it into 3 parts. Yung una nga, yung current situation, and then the second part would be the why USAID happens in the Philippines, and then the last are concrete recommendations for us CHR personnel and for us women and child rights advocates. Okay. Sige po. So, ang aking pong situation ay actually based on UNICEF studies and Child Rights Network kung saan po napapabilang yung ating komisyon. So, sabi po based dun sa report po ng UNICEF, una ay currently, the Filipinos po tayo, hindi lang sa UNICEF po lagi na may isang current study, siguro napanood niyo po ito, na in terms of the use of social media, I think we're second. So we're topping the world po, in terms of social media use. At alam natin na pag ganito, talaga yung access po sa media, sa social media, sa mga iba't ibang platforms ay madali. Last year or in 2017 po, naglabas ng study ang United Nations Children's Fund or UNICEF at sinasabi ng Pilipinas ngayon ay global epicenter of the live stream sexual abuse trade. And the worst po yun, UNICEF even tagged us or the Philippines as the top global source or child pornography in 2017. Bakit? Yung mismong VAWG nagsabi na more than 600,000 cyber tips of sexual images of Filipino children in 2018. No? So parang 1,000% daw po ito increase no, doon previously in 2017. And lastly po yung sitwasyon ngayon, alarming po no, na ito documented po ito no, na currently ang mismong mga members ng pamilya ng mga bata ay ang mga crime facilitators or sila yung nag-online, sila yung gumagawa ng mga live streaming porno. So very po siya, alarming po yung sitwasyon ng mga batang babae ngayon pagdating po sa online sexual abuse. So bakit ba nangyayari ito sa Pilipinas? So mag-identify po ako ng 4 siguro na mas marami pa siguro yung reasons, no? Pero basically, these are the 4 common sa mga iba't ibang mga documentations, mga iba't ibang mga discussions na napupuntahan. Una, ang involvement sa USAID ay madaling gawin. Pangalawa, unfortunately until now, no, we have yung capacity of the Philippine government or the state in terms of investigating cases, hindi pa po siya ganon ka-established or marami pa pong mga gaps. Pangatlo po ay, well, na-mention kanina ni Ma'am Lisa po na we have laws. But later on, I will be discussing po sa inyo ano yung mga gaps sa laws na ito. And pang-apat, ito po yung aking paborito. Siguro, ang duluduluhan po bakit merong sexual abuse sa online sa Pilipinas ay dahil na rin po sa how do we value our children? Lalo na po itong ating mga batang babae. Paano ho ba natin tinitignan? Paano ho ba tinitignan naglipunan ang mga bata? At particular, batang babae man yan o batang lalaki. So according to UNICEF and the CRN, no, bakit siya nagiging madali ang USAID sa Pilipinas? Unang-una kasi ito, yung isang talagang basic problem ay yung widespread poverty, no? So, bali nagiging income generating ng isang pamilya ang involvement ng mga anak sa SAID. Pangalawa, cheap internet and smartphones. Alam po natin na you have 50 pesos, pwede ka na for 2 days, may undeserved so 50 pesos na po yan. At ang lalo na ngayon, na magkakameron ng access sa mga telepono ang mga batang Pinoy because of the current pandemic, yung ating education ay online na. And then sabi rin nila ay yung ability to speak English well. Kahit na yung may capacity, no, putol man o hindi mag-grammatically correct, but the Filipino, meron siyang capacity na mas madaling makipag-communicate sa mga foreigners. Then, pang-apat, yung availability po ng money remittances. Pagdating mo sa kanto, meron ka ng Palawan, meron ka ng Cebuana. So, very easy po yung transfer po ng payment. No? Pang-lima ay yung prevailing norms of secrecy. Ano ibig sabihin po nito? Alam naman natin na pag nasa loob na ng bahay, you can do anything. So, parang meron na palang on-cam na nangyayari doon, pero hindi lang naman bahay. Kasi ginagawa nga siya sa may telepono at meron ka ng room, pwede na. Pang-anim, lack of parental supervision. No? So, sometimes caused by parents, no, nagtatrabaho, naiiwan yung mga bata. So, yung mga bata, pwede nilang gawin kung ano yung mga pwede nilang gawin. Tapos, yun isa siguro yung pinakanin, yung lack of resources to investigate and prosecute perpetrators and rescue and rehabilitate victims. So, batay po sa international report po, no, more than 75% ang mga cases ng SAID dito sa Pilipinas ay repair. So, ibig sabihin na tangkang galing yung information ay galing sa foreign country. For example, US, saka pinapasa dito sa Pilipinas. So 75%, we still need to increase po, no, our capacity po, strengthen our capacity for this particular aspect. Pangalawa po, na dahilan kung bakit may usaik sa Pilipinas ay yung weak investigation. Maisip niyo lang po, out of 1,000 reports in 2018, only 27 conviction of usaik. So galing po yan sa international monitoring. And even our own government agency po na the DSWD in 2019 said that the different agencies, for example, the PNP and the National NBI, cannot nakikita? Sandali lang po, hindi daw nakikita.
Hindi nakikita yung presentation mo online, Miss Linda.
Yeah. Anong kailangan?
Miss Bing, may request lang na to make it into a presentation slide.
Yeah.
Pakiclick lang po yung slideshow, ma'am.
Nakikita ko naman dito, Leah.
Yes, Doc, may request lang to have it into a presentation slide. Itong parang bigger, yung third. Yan po, Miss Bing.
Pakipindot lang po yung slideshow, ma'am. Yan.
Yes.
Po. Kasi
malinaw po, kwento dito kasi kwentuhan niya ako. Sorry po. Okay, we'll just share my presentation po later. I will give it to
Kwentuhan nga.
Okay. Sige. So, according to DSWD, the PNP or the National Bureau of Investigation, they're not doing their job in terms of reporting. Kasi batay sa dalawang batas po, they're supposed to report within the week po, pag may mga natanggap silang reports. Pero sabi nga ng DSWD, hindi ito nagagawa pa ng mga law enforcement agencies such as the PNP and the National Bureau of Investigation. Number 3, bakit meron tayong problema or talamak yung problema natin sa Pilipinas pagdating sa usaid ay yung insufficient laws and structures. Yes, right now we have two recent laws, particularly the RA 9775 or the Anti-Child Pornography Law, the Cybercrime Prevention Law ng 2012 po, Pero ito po ay hindi encompassing hindi magkakaugnay at marami pa po gaps na nakikita. Halimbawa yung mga gaps dito, yung recruitment and online technology, hindi na-discuss, yung stages of commission, yung participation in the offense, kailan magiging liable ang isang tao, hindi pa malinaw. Yung corresponding penalties, hindi rin po malinaw. Tapos po, ang dami pong inter-agency bodies. Halimbawa po, right now we have 4. Yung CRC or yung Komisyon sa Karapatang Pantao, umuupo po sa 4 na inter-agency bodies na ito. So yung una po na inter-agency bodies ay yung IACAT po. So basically, they're in charge po doon sa lahat ng trafficking. And yung isang methodology or isang platform na ginagamit ay yung action line, emergency hotline. Meron naman po yan. Pangalawa, of course, siguro narinig na rin po yung Council for the Welfare of Children. And then we have the YACAP-CP, or Interagency Council Against Child Pornography. So ito naman they're supposed to monitor the implementation of the Anti-Child Pornography Act. And this one composed of 12 government agencies and 3 NGOs. And then the last one would be under DOLE, yung Task Force Against Illegal Recruitment. Pero ito po, 4 yan na different interagencies. Hindi po kami nagkakamera ng isang pagpupulong. Kanya-kanyang meeting po yan. Nagkikita-kita kami kasi same people lang po minsan yung umaattend. So, right now, there are pending bills in Congress that aim to strengthen penalties against child abuse, raise the minimum age of sexual consent, and yung passage po ng isang online sexual abuse and exploitation of children. So there are 2 House bill na naka-pending sa House of Representatives. Siguro ito po yung tingin ko po dapat i-address ng Pilipino ngayon or ng ating lipunan. Nabanggit kanina ni Ma'am Lisa no harm kasi naman yun nangyayari. So nagkakaroon ka ng online, nagkakaroon ka man dyan ng video, pero ang katwiran ng mga magulang o ng mga perpetrators, actually hindi naman naapektuhan yung mga bata kasi hindi naman sila nakakawakan. So, yan po yung pero batay po sa mga pag-aaral, halimbawa po siguro I would like to mention that ang isa sa pinakamaganda na pag-aaral na recent ay yung sa International Justice Mission. Kasi ito po ay from apprehension hanggang sa epekto ng mga bata tinignan. So yung hindi naman nahahawakan, parang yan yung lagi pong naririnig ngayon na katwiran ng mga na okay lang kasi hindi naman nahahawakan yung mga bata. Pangalawa po, yung pag-commercialize ng mga bata. Recently, inabot kami ng kwento ko lang, inabot kami ng gabi pag-uusap sa CRC. Kung anong gagawin namin sa isang case na parang yung nanay nagkaroon na siya ng online business. Ang ginawa niya pong model doon sa kanyang pagtitinda ng mga damit ay yung kanyang mismong anak. Minake-upan po yung bata at okay lang naman po, di ba, mag-contract yung bata, pero yung bata po fully made up, tapos yung kanyang mga gesture, hindi po picture pang bata. So, parang tingin ng nanay, cute na cute yung nanay, naka-post siya sa FB po, Pero parang hindi niya nakita yata yung angulo na hindi rin may mga mag-react or hindi pare-pareho ng appreciation doon sa mga photos na nilabas niya patungkol sa kanyang anak. So, siguro yan yung paano ba natin tinitignan ang ating mga anak or mga bata ngayon. Ito po yung mga concrete recommendations po I think naglista po ako dito ng 14 po, So una, inuuna ko na po ito. Right now, we're working on the passage of laws po, Ito yung a while ago nabanggit ko yung passage ng isang batas po na specifically para ma-address po yung usapin ng online sexual abuse and exploitation of children. Pangalawa po, ito yung increasing the age of statutory rape, I would like to share with you that the committee level na approve po yung 16 po yung from 12 magiging 16 na po yung definition or yung paano kailan masasabi na statutory rape ang nangyari. Pangalawa po, I think the government must prove its capacity. We don't have the capacity in terms of the software. As mentioned a while ago, we need foreign help, para lang makadetect tayo ng mga ongoing na usae na nasa lang po natin, paligid natin. Okay. Tapos po, pangatlo, official from the DOJ and the Philippine National Police po, dapat may continuous training po. Pangapat, the government must set up accessible and accurate reporting structure. Kasi po, puro yung ating mga nakikita number ngayon, hindi pa po siya eksakto. Parang approximate lang po siya. So we need to have parang database po talaga, Saan ba nangyayari? Halimbawa sa Cebu, dito sa barangay nito, yung buong barangay kasama dito sa Usae. Okay. So pag nagkagay, doon lang natin malalaman, hindi pa po siya kompleto. Panglima po, it must come up with a nationwide information campaign on the detrimental impact of commercializing our children. Kanina, a while ago, na-mention po ito ni Ma'am Lisa na yung kailangan ng information campaign talaga. Pag hindi na information campaign na dapat comprehensive at yung term po sustained po yun, yung patuloy yan, every day or every month, year-long campaign po dapat mangyari. Panganim po, I think that the various interagency bodies must come up with a comprehensive long-term programs and services. From apprehension to the rehabilitation of children, the biktima dapat meron po. Unfortunately, right now we don't have. That's why isa po ito na minumungkahi na pwedeng tignan ng CHR at ng mga women rights advocates. For the national government to continue its partnership with international agencies. So, ito po yun, yung mga recent, natin, yung isang pinaka-recent na arrest po, yung nangyari sa CDO ng isang Australian national po, 8 ang na-rate niya, including infant. At ito po ay video, documented po yun. So, after so many years po, 54 cases, 54, of rape, counts of rape po, After 54 counts of rape, saka lang nahuli yung and because of the help of foreign partners. Pangalo po, for the government to strengthen its capacity to apprehend violators. Nabanggit ko na po dito, So dapat mayroong rin technical know-how yung mga law enforcement agencies natin. And then, one of the most important ay kung yung pag-capacitate ng mga barangay officials and community leaders, paano ba madidetect ang isang activity sa kanilang barangay? So, baka kailangan turuan din po yung mga barangay officials. Number 10, ito yung kailangan po, at very, ngayon, buhay po ang children sector, Yung movement and initiative must be strengthened and supported, such as the Safe Kids PH Consortium po, So parang ito po ay mga international NGOs, saka mga NGOs, local NGOs po, They're working with the government po para ma-raise po, to increase the awareness on the effect and the long-term impact and effects of sexual exploitation. The next would be how to protect and how to value and treat children accordingly. Dapat turuan yung mga magulang. Yes, sila yung mga anak ninyo, pero meron silang karapatan. Karapatan rin nila yung kanilang katawan. Karapatan nila yung na mabigyan sila, ma-provide ng safe environment. So kasi ngayon, ever since alam naman natin na nangyayari ang karahasan, di ba, public and private. Pero ngayon po may bagong dimension. Ito nga yung cyberspace or yung online. The children, at pinakahuli ko po sigurong flash to point yung the children themselves must be taught on the evil and negative effects of society. Yung kung sabi natin kasi kanina na no harm, hindi ka naman nahahawakan, okay lang. So kailangan natin as young as they can, as 2 or 3, ganyan po kasi ngayon pati bata ka po ay nagiging biktima na. Turuan po natin sila kung ano ba na ito ay hindi siya tama, ito ay abuse, ito ay makaka-apekto sa iyo sa long term. Tapos po, ang mga bata rin sana po maturuan paano mag-report. Kasi sa batas naman natin, ang isang batang biktima ay pwede with or without her parents or guardians, pwede po siya magsumbo. Meron po tayo, di ba? Meron po tayo mga mandatory reporters, meron po tayong low charge. So dapat malaman ito ng mga bata kung paano at kailan sila mag-report. Okay. So, at gusto ko pong tapusin yung CHR personnel at mga advocates po na dahil nga sa digital age tayo, at the same time may pandemic pa, ang siguro ang pinakamagawa ma-prevent yung violence against women and children ay yung mismong pagtuturo or pag-empower doon sa mga batang babae or mga kababaihan po. So, sabi nga po ng isang dating presidente ng US na we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Siguro yun po yung challenge na i-hand natin ang ating child at para sila ay mandigan para maproteksyonan yung kanilang sarili. So doon ko muna po tatapusin yung aking presentation. I hope within the 15 minutes po siya, range siya. I can answer any questions later on. So binahagi ko po yung mga yung mga existing or yung mga ongoing lobby or advocacy work na ginagawa ng mga child rights advocates, para manghingi rin po ng tulong sa inyo at para rin po may handa yung ating CHR para sa mga iba't ibang usapin na patungkol sa mga kabataan Pinoy. Maraming salamat po at good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bing. On the dot si Ms. Bing. So, nadinig natin yung presentation ni Ms. Bing. Nilatag niya yung reasons bakit nangyayari yung violence against children online. Ang isa sa mga in-underscore niya, easy access, weak investigation, and insufficient laws. Very important na titigan at pag-isipan natin bakit nangyayari ito at paano i-address. So, may mga recommendations siyang nilatag. Kasama dito yung increasing yung age of sexual consent, improve capacity to address the issue, particularly yung apprehension. And then there's a need for mechanisms, increase information campaign, train barangay officials. Yun yung ilan sa mga recommendations na nilatag niya. By the way, later tayo mag-entertain ng questions. Our next reactor is Attorney Virginia Laxa Suarez. She will give her insights about the changing manifestations and context of VAWG, including whether the existing legal remedies are enough, and how victims will proceed with confronting the issue or deal with it legally when she encounters it and decided to. Attorney Suarez, take it away.
Yeah. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Lisa, magandang hapon. Yeah. Kanina nabanggit kasi ni Lisa yung tungkol kay Jennifer Laude. I mean, the case that he handled na sobrang kung mamamatay uli si Jennifer Laude sa tindi ng violence at the time being committed against her, ay baka naman sa may pamilya na dumanas din ng panglalait, ng pang-aabuso, ng mga verbal abuses online, sa TV, kahit sa radio at that time. Talagang baka kung nakamamatay ang mga salita, baka namatay na rin. Okay, hindi na ako dun sa kung ano ang mga violence dahil discuss naman thoroughly ng ating Lisa, sa game. Ako all ang violence o ang oppression ng babaihan ay nagagda doon sa pwede pag-anan ng babae. It's really the ownership of women that is the root of oppression. Kasi yung pakaipa ng lipunan ng marami na pwede mong pag-arian yung babae. Kasi ano ba yung mga bagay na talaga pwedeng pag-arian? Diba? Ang pwede mo lang pag-arian, the things that you can own are things or objects. Diba? At ano ang ginagawa mo sa mga bagay? You abusing it. You use it, you abuse it, you dispose it kapag ayaw mo na. Diba? O bumibig ka. And that is exactly what many do to women. Kaya yung kaisipan na parang alin ang babae, diba? Kung bawa sa loob ng pamilya, ang pagtingin na pag-aari nila yung anak, sa mawang pagtingin ng asawa na lalaki, pag-aari sa minsan ang buong komunidad, ang pag-aaral o sa lahan, ang mga teachers na ang tingin sa mga bata ay pag-aaral o kumpanya na ang tingin ng mga employers ay pag-aaral nila kanilang empleyado. That kind of mental thinking translates to different forms of violence being committed against at diba, ang niya sa lahat istruktura, sa buong sistema ng lipunan. Kaya kailangan yun na meron sa mission at sa patuloy yan. Kaya nga, pag gusto nating address ang violence against women, girls and women, first and foremost, hindi it's the information and education. Diba? Okay. Ako sa legal remedy. The legal remedy, alam natin, filing of cases, it's a long, tedious, and expensive process. Napakahirap para sa nakakagastos. At lagi nating tandaan na kapag magsasampa ng evidence and there pag-usapin ng ebidensya, diba?
Attorney Verge, medyo choppy po kayo. Attorney Verge,
okay.
Medyo choppy po kayo. Baka dahan-dahan. I don't know if your signal, baka dahan-dahan na lang na ano.
Okay. Dahan. Pag salita ko, medyo mabilis talaga magsalita. Balikan ko yung song ay napakahirap agad sa isang babae, no? Dahil agad-agad matagal usapin ng ebidensya. Kapag pinag-usapan natin ay usapin ng ebidensya, alam agad din natin evidence can easily be fabricated. Therefore, kapag pinag-usapan non-burden of providing, no, yung enough evidence para matiyak natin conviction doon. Again, isa pang bagay sa kaso, no, pagkaso, the courts are not after the real truth. The courts are simply after the legal truth. And the truth is that truth that is borne out by evidence. Kaya ito ng ebidensya. Kahit usapin ng ebidensya, napakahalaga, no? Napakahalaga. And bakit pumunta sa napakahalaga lahat, no? Paano? Everything starts breaking the culture. Small. Is picking up. In the many cases that I handled and the present cases that I handled, all those violence, no? Bago ba nagsalita, yung isang salita, isang babae, it's not sa kanila. Madalas, bago salita, 10 beses na sila abuso. And many times, it lifetime of salita. Ako ngayon, isang bata, nagsimula abusuhin ng kanyang lolo nung siya na taon gulang siya. Sabihin sa kanya, no, patuloy yon hanggang noong siya ay 16 years old. Naputol dahil namatay ang kanyang lolo. Sa isip ng na taon, kailangan ko lang sabihin dahil na pare ang 6 na taon gulang, hindi niya maiisip na mali yun. So, manonormalize sa kanyang isip na yung ginagawa sa kanya ng lolo ay isang natural na bagay. Kaya ang parang, lang yun. Until sa time na yung bayo ay maikukwento niya sa iba at yung ibang tao magsasabi sa kanya na mali yung nagawa sa kanya. Until such time na magsimula siya, violence will continue to happen unless and until the girl starts to speak up. Diba? Kaya napaka-importante you break agad cultural in any way but through information and education at yung kausap. In pagkausap. In fact, okay. In fact, yung app niya ay kaagad-agad yun paraan na for a girl self. Yun eh. Kaya agad yun.
Attorney Virgie, napuputol po kayo. Sayang.
Po yung ano nyo, audio. Medyo hindi na. I don't know kung signal nyo po.
Actually, naka ano siya eh.
Full siya?
Todo.
Kaya, bakit kaya napuputol?
Ano siya? Unstable po ang signal nyo kaya nagbe-break.
Baka if we can get off, wala naman ding naka-video na. I'll off my video just.
Stop my video and then mas okay kung voice.
Sige po, try nyo po kung wala po yung video nyo po. Baka matuloy-tuloy yung ano.
Okay.
Sige.
You know, so again, yung mismong when the girl starts to speak up, that is also the start of the liberation of that girl. Yun yung simula liberate niya sa sarili niya mula doon, no, sa mapang-aping sitwasyon niya. At yun din, no, kapag nagsimula na siyang magsalita, lalo na kapag nagsalita na siya sa iba, nagsumbong na siya, dun din mapuputol. Dun din, no, matatapos yung tinatawag natin na violence. So napaka-important yung breaking the culture of silence for that girl or woman to start. And then the second very important thing ay yung for the girl or woman to really understand and be able to identify that she is actually being violated. Hirap kapag mong babata o mismo babae ay hindi niya naiintindihan na nala ay naabuso. O, again, halimbawa, dun sa isang kaso ko na sinimulang usuin na taon, hindi niya na ay ba-violate na pala siya. Yung simpleng paghawak, 'di ba? Nagsimula sa simpleng paghawak sa balikat, hanggang paghawak sa masela ng katawan, hanggang sa na doon sa mismong pang-abuso, pang-dola. Kaya kapag really addressing violence against women should be mean addressing violence against
Ulit po yun, Attorney Virgie. Naputol po yun. Yung addressing violence against women is really addressing violence against
girls. Kasi violence because
nawala niya si Attorney Virgie.
Naputol po kayo uli. Hanggang girls lang.
Ayaw ipadinig yung sunod na salita ni Attorney Virgie.
Yeah. Parang ano ka, parang nakaabang na po kami lahat kung ano na yung susunod mong sasabihin. Parang really.
Yeah, no? Nagiging intergenerational problem siya tayo. Bakit? Yung isa lumta niya lang ng tatay at hindi kumikibo. Talaga.
Napuputol kayo.
Attorney Verge, napuputol uli kayo. Nakuha lang namin na addressing violence against women is addressing violence against girls. And then yung sinasabi mo na nagiging intergenerational problem siya.
Oo, yes. Kapag if we're not able to address the violence against girls, magiging violence against women yan. Okay. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes po, nadidinig ka namin. Pero putol-putol.
Oo. Okay. I promise I'll write all this at ipadadala ko sa Twyla. No? Hindi ko alam paano, no? Of course, another remedy na po pwede merong committee on decorum saan? Sa eskwelahan, sa kumpanya. Bakit? No? Dito sa dalawang lugar na ito, merong moral ascendancy ang tindi ng pang-aabuso sa mga kabataan. Kaya kapag walang lalapitan ang mga kabataan doon, patuloy, no? Patuloy yung violence. Ang problema, na natatakot na makialam kapag may nalalaman sila na nangyayaring violence against the students. Maraming mga teachers alam nila abuso ng tatay, na lolo, o kaya na-abuso mo ng kanilang kapwa-teachers. And yet, keep their silence. Kaya, napakaganda addressing violence, kailangan namin isip paano turuan din talaga, paano talaga i-empower, ano ang ating mga teachers. Sila kasi yung agad-agad directly so yun, really ensure the committee on decorum. And the same thing holds sa kumpanya. Dahil kadalasan sa kumpanya, sa takot ng mga kabataan na mawalan ba, dumadating sa punto na ang tagal bago makapagsalita o bago magsumbong. Again, importante doon na palaganapin at tiyakin committee on decorum sa lahat ng mga sa lahat
Ma'am, can we wrap up in 1 minute?
Yes. Okay. Sa loob ng bahay, patindi ng violence nangyayari. Sa loob ng bahay, lagi nating sinasabi, di ba, huwag lumabas sa mga bata dahil nakakot sa labas. Lagi na bilang mga nanay, sa loob ng bahay, doon nabubugbog ang bata, doon siya naaabuso, doon siya nabebenta. Di ba? Physically, sexually, doon siya naaabuso. Doon na kahit nasisigawan, namumuto. No? Kaya din, kapag napakahalaga, no, na talagang magkaroon ng sapat na edukasyon ng ating mga kababaihan, ang ating mga kananayan, at lalo na ang ating barangay. Dahil sa kapinaryo ay nasa bahay, ang unang dapat papuntahan ay ang barangay. Again, to wrap it up, really, speak up. di ba? To speak up and isulat, no? Ano ang nangyayari, i-monitor, ipa-blatter ka agad, report ka agad, no? At hanggang sa magsampa ng kaso, yung mismong pagsulat, yung mismong report, yung mismong as documentary evidence later on kung magsasampa ng kaso. And of course, do not forget, di ba, yung psychological report and or the medical legal report. Kaagad-agad nating sa ng bata. At ang lahat ng ito ay makakatulong, no, sa sa panahon na nagsampa na tayo ng kaso. Hindi ko na tatapusin para dahil medyo maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat Attorney Virgie. In-underscore ni Attorney Virgie na isa sa ang pinaka root cause ng VAWG ay ownership of women as the root of oppression. So basically dahil sa iniisip ng mga kalalakihan at ng society na pag-aari nila yung kababaihan, kaya nangyayari yung VAWG. So sabi niya, kailangan para ma-address yung issue ay educated ang ating mga kabataan at ating kababaihan, kailangan silang empower, at ganun din yung ating implementers, particularly sa barangay level, ay kailangan i-educate. So very important na ma-document ang mga pang-aabuso na nangyari para sa pagsampa ng kaso. So, nag-cite si Attorney Virgie ng mga cases na hinawakan niya, kaya lang hindi malinaw yung kanyang audio, kaya hindi natin masyado na-pick up yung mga cases na iyon. So, basically, yun yung discussions. We now open the discussions, the forum for questions.
Siguro, Leia, dadagdag ko lang, no, dun sa mga maiikling reflection dun sa, dahil kwentuhan naman ito, reflection ko habang pinapakinggan si Attorney Virgie. Yung sinabi niya kanina na important yung breaking the silence. Marami tayong karanasan dun sa mga naka-experience ng online and offline sexual violence or gender-based violence na una, isang issue talaga yung magsasalita, kailan magsasalita. Tapos yung isa siguro na talagang tumago sa akin yung the importance of women realizing that they have been violated. She said it in the context of children, pero dahil marami tayo ditong mga kasamang mga deaf, and some of the cases that we've handled deaf din and online yung kanilang engagement sa ka-chat nila, yun pala, matagal yung realization na may violence nang nangyayari. And it happens if they get or they talk to other women na nagsabi na violence na yung nangyayari. So, naging importante yun na dahil nakita din ito sa karanasan ng CHR at saka yung sinabi din ni Attorney Virgie kanina na yung community support, yung family, teachers, sila nakakaalam, yung CODI, at hindi lang yung silence ng babae, no, yung silence ng institutions and silence ng mga professors na nakakaalam, so complicit sila sa violations. Alam natin na may batas na ganun na pwede sila maging liable, pero most of the time ay hindi rin na i-implement tong provision na ito ng batas. At saka yung sinabi niya na yung role ng teachers, isa din sa kaso ng CHR ay teacher yung nag-report ng violence na nangyari sa bata. So totoo talaga na empowering those who are in the community level na mag-engage with those children, girls, women, at lalo na yung mga vulnerable na women ay nakakatulong sa pag-access ng remedies. So, Leia, if you allow me, I'll read some of the questions and then ano na lang kung kanino siya or sino dapat yung mag-a-address.
Sige.
Okay. So yung isa sa mga questions nandito, actually meron akong question pero para kay Lisa yun. So unahin ko muna kasi nauna yung question para kay Miss Bing. Miss Bing, may question from Tina at ang question dito ay ano yung ating reaction sa statement ng DOJ last May 25 wherein the DOJ blamed telecommunication companies' alleged failure to block the prohibited materials. I don't know kung
sino po yung nagtanong nga ulit
si Tina po.
Nagpalitan po sila ng nagbatuhan sila ng nag-exchange po sila diyan, notes po sila pa VAWG saka ang mga telecommunication. Yesterday po nag-attend ako ng online hearing po sa committee sa House of Representatives. May ganyan pa rin po. Yan po yung sinabi ko kanina nga na may na may gaps po yung Cybercrime Act at saka yung yung anti-pornography. At may ginawa naman po ang DOJ, naglabas sila together with PNP, saka yung mga iba't ibang na-mention kanina, naglabas po sila nung May 25 po ng joint resolution condemning the na proliferation nga po ng online. So hanggang ngayon po, hindi ko matandaan po, meron yatang yung constitutionality po yung pinag-uusapan yan. Nire-resolve po yan doon sa proposed bill po na hinihir ngayon sa USAID. So hindi po siya. Hindi gap po kasi sa batas. Kailan hindi masasabihan ang mga telecommunication companies na nag-violate na sila ng constitution. Privacy. Ang sabi po kasi ng yung mga service providers po ay dapat meron pong konkretong complaint po na matanggap sila from the national telecommunication na nag-a-allow sa kanila to issue or to share yung mga information na hinihingi. So, ganun po yung existing situation ngayon. Kaya sinusubukan po na magpasa ng batas para masagot yung gap na yun.
Okay, para naman thank you Miss Bing, so isa pa siyang kailangang abangan at nakadikit siya dun sa sinabi ni Lisa kung ano ba yung kanilang mga accountabilities ng ating mga intermediaries. Parang sila lang yung kumikita pero walang accountability. So yung question ko para kay Lisa, dahil kagagaling kami kanina sa safe spaces consultation ng NGAs, and I'm sure yung CSOs meron din. Para ba sa FMA, nakatulong ba yung pagpasa ng 11313 in terms of addressing GBV in online spaces? Ano yung inaasahan nyo sa batas? Lalo na sa pagpapatupad nito at lalo na sa panahon ngayon na hindi pa ganun kaklaro kung ano yung plano ng ahensyang mag-implement nito.
Okay, salamat dun sa tanong, Twyla. Bago lang kasi yung batas, sa totoo lang, hindi ko pa nakikita talaga kung nakatulong siya. The intention of the law is good. Ganda naman na ma-address yung mga kaso na ganito kasi medyo tricky din to eh. Although yung ibang binabanggit naman dun sa Safe Spaces Act ay nata-target nahagip na rin ng ibang batas. Kunwari yung Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism Act. Merong mga ganun naman eh. So, very challenging kasi pag sinabi mong online, medyo mahirap talaga ito. When you talk about, kunwari, sa children, how do you monitor? Kung minsan, nahirap yun eh. Baka kasi minsan, lumalampas ka na doon sa boundaries ng law. Baka yung privacy ng isang individual ay nasasakop mo na, na-violate na. Ang daming challenges nitong batas na to because this is online number one. The challenge is paano mo ba talagang i-implement yung implementation. Palagi namang challenge yan eh. Naiintindihan ba nung mag-i-implement yung batas na ipapatupad niya, lalo na this is online. You need capacity. Alam ko naman, of course, may capacity. Palagi namang may mga training sa mga police dito. Meron silang mga digital forensics na ina-attendan, but hope sana yung mga titingin ng mga kaso ay maalam. And then the other challenge that we see is paano yung transboundary nature nung kung mangyari to, no? Kasi hindi naman lahat ng online gender-based violence ay sa Pilipinas lang mangyayari. Kung ito ay na-commit ng isang tao na nasa labas ng bansa. So that would be a challenge. How do you go after that person? Tapos nung tinitingnan ko kasi yung batas, medyo malabo pa. Pareho nyo, ano bang, hindi kasi alam eh, meron dito sinasabi, what are the online mechanisms for reporting? Meron na ba nito silang ginawa? And then how do you measure it, paano mo siyang i-monitor yung ganito. I think the agencies who will be implementing this should come up with mechanisms, with guidelines kung paano nila ipapatupad ito. Baka kailangan pa ng mas malawakan na diskusyon tungkol dito. Well, nag-umpisa na naman sila siguro, no, hopefully, but di ko pa kasi nakikita yung so yung kung ano yung mechanisms na gusto nilang ipatupad. Tricky kapag online Katulad ng, pwede bang sagutin ko na rin yung question, yung kay Tina, no? Yung sa children kanina na binabanggit. Kasi hindi lang naman ito usapin ng pagbablock mo. Kasi yung inire-relate ko sa challenges to Of course, when you have na pornographic materials coming in, lalo na pagbata yan, yes, you can block, pwede mo siyang i-filter, yung mga ganon. Pero paano kunwari yung mga transactions that are happening online? Hindi naman kasi talaga mamomonitor yan ng telcos, ng ISPs. Kunwari, nag-chat tayo sa FB, there's a chat going on, pero imo-monitor ba yan? It's like it's medyo intrusive na yon kung baka ito i-monitor natin kasi posible na gano'n. Unless you have proof talaga, ang hirap na basta-basta mo na lang i-monitor yung yung transaction that's going on. Tsaka iba-ibang platforms din kasi yung ginagamit nung mga let's say yung mga nagta-transact for this sa OSEC, no? And then again, pag tiningnan mo kasi sa usapin sa kabataan, no, sa children, we are producers, hindi naman consumers. Hindi malaki ang consumption dito ng yung material, yung sa child pornography, but we are more of producers ng content. So dito nang gagaling. So again, the challenge of the transboundary nature of the crime, how do you go after the perpetrator who is not from the Philippines, who is out of the country? Medyo dapat pag-aralan yung ganong mga usapin. Yan lang muna.
Meron pa yatang isang karagdagang tanong for you, Ma'am Lisa, Miss Lisa. Saklaw ba ng batas natin sa kasalukuyan ang GBV sa mobile at computer games? Or, sige. Or pwede din nating tanungin si Attorney Virgie before I turn over.
Yes. Parang hindi ko nabasa yun sa computer games. Of course, there's a lot of violence, online violence happening. Ang daming makikita yan sa mga games, makikita mo the way they portray women, yung ganon. Pero is that enough for you to file a case? Parang wala pa sa batas yung mga ganon.
Wala din kayong complaint na ganon na yung online GBV ay committed through computer games? Wala pa tayong na-encounter.
Nag-complain. Iba yung kong complain gamers sila, pero since yung I encountered this case, no, since siya yung parang siya yung host, nag-MC pag may mga computer games, binabash siya, may mga hinaharas siya dahil babae siya. So ang daming mga pasaring sa kanya because babae siya. Yon yung yung na dinig ko na kaso, no. May nag-share ng ganon. Pero the games itself, well, hindi ko alam kung dapat magkaroon tayo ng rating Minsan kasi parang sa MTRCB, no, ito bang games na to ay should we allow very young children to play some games because some of the games are really violent in nature, very sexist in nature, and dapat na siguro tingnan din yon, no?
Thank you, Lisa. Si Attorney Virgie, may gusto mong sagutin yung katanungan ni Elaine sa chat group? Nandito pa kaya si Attorney Virgie? Attorney Virgie? Do we have other questions in the chat, Leah, na nakikita mo?
Oo. Ano dito yung tanong ni ano yung tanong dito na sasagutin ko?
May nagtatanong po, Attorney Virgie, kasi kung covered ba ng current laws natin yung GBV in mobile at saka computer games?
Yung sa computer. Okay. Sige. Yung sa mobile, actually po pwede siya kasi pag mobile, no, sabihin cellphone. Ganun ba?
Yes, cellphone.
Ang sinasabi mong mobile, cellphone diba?
Yes, attorney.
Yes, oo. Ano din, pwede rin siya. Halimbawa, doon sa may na hawak ko, ang ginamit kong ebidensya, yung mga pinagte-text niya doon sa may cellphone. No? Sabihin, pwede siya
sa computer games.
Wala pa akong wala pa akong nahawakan involving yung computer games. Kaya hindi ko, unless, napaka-general kasi, like for example, how exactly was the violence committed dun sa may computer games? Ibig sabihin ba yung games mismo ay using sexual violence or
very general po yung tanong.
Oo.
Thank you po, Attorney Virgie. Leah, mayroon yatang si Cresta, I think, one of our deaf participant, wanted to ask a question. Hi, Cresta. Magsasign sa'yo si Amy. Okay. Cresta, your question? Nakikita ba ni Cresta?
Nakita nga po, sinusulat niya po yata yung tanong niya.
Attorney Twyla.
Yes po, Doc. Hello.
Habang inaantay natin yung tanong ni Krista, o ready na ba siya? May comment lang ako. Sige, baka ready na si Krista. Okay, hindi niya alam.
Alam niya, nag-text siya sa akin. Natatanong siya.
Hello, sorry. Nagpanic po siya. Sorry. So, hello po sa ating my name is Cresta. Ito po ang sign name ko. I just want to ask kay Miss Bing. May question po ako para kay Miss Bing. Meron kasing hearing or deaf. Kunwari ako, nanay. Tapos yung parents ko kasama yung mga anak. Siyempre, kasal ako. And then, itong mga bata, tinuturuan ko, hindi ko sila kinokontrol. Pero yung husband ko, kinokontrol siya. Kunyari lang yun. So siyempre, pagdating sa allowance naman, nasa-stuck ako kasi wala akong work, wala akong trabaho. Pero yung husband ko, meron siyang work, nakatira kami sa isang bahay, pinoprotektahan namin yung mga bata. Pero yung tatay, masyadong stricto. So ako, nirerespeto nila. So, paano yung allowance kaya? Para pag ganun ang nangyayari. Kunyari, hindi niya kinokontrol, yung husband masyadong controlling sa mga anak, ganun. Paano daw po yun? Ano pong gagawin?
Yan, online violence yung tanong ni Cresta.
O parang violence talaga sa mga bata na kaming mag-iina, parang nai-include din yung husband na controlling. Tapos pag allowance, hindi niya binibigyan yung asawa niya and yung mga bata. So very, very, very controlling daw po. So paano daw po? Ano pong gagawin? Magpa-file po ba ako ng case?
Clarification to, husband to, yung kausap, partner, yung controlling sa children and sa wife?
Opo. Yun po. So, may mga stories kasi na gano'n na ang mga husband, kinokontrol masyado ang wife and the children, hindi rin nabibigyan ng allowance. Ganun po.
Si Miss Bing ba ang yung sasagot or si Attorney Virgie? So, depende sa inyo, Miss Bing.
Tanong niya daw po kay Miss Bing.
Sa'yo talaga, Miss Bing.
Actually, pag ano po yung isang pwedeng batas na tignan dyan, yung RA 7610. Kasi di po ba, yung economic ano po yan, no? Abuse po yung hindi pagbibigay ng allowance sa mga bata, yung financial support. So pwede po yan. Tapos po kasi yun, di ba, yung pagpapalaki po kasi ng bata, hindi lang po trabaho ng tatay, di ba? Parental authority. Pag parental authority yan at ng under 18 ay pareho po yan, joint parental authority pagkasal at nagsasama yung mga magulang. So, ang pwedeng gawin po dyan ay incomplete kasi po yung kwento ni Cresta, no? Pero kung pwede pong gawin ay humingi siya ng support. Pwede po yan humingi. Magkasama ba yung magulang? Kung hindi magkasama yung magulang, pwede kang pumunta ng barangay para gumawa ng kasulatan to compel the father to provide financial support para sa kanyang mga anak. Kasi meron po siyang responsibilidad under family code po, no, na para tustusan yung educational yung panggastos, yung lahat na basic needs ng isang anak. So, may marami kang pwedeng option na gawin dyan. Pero baka yun nga, yung pag-usapan yung muna, pag hindi, pwede kayo pumunta ng barangay. Barangay muna bago kayo pumunta sa court.
Oh, meron ding kasagutan si Attorney Virgie. Attorney Virgie, so shortly in response to Cresta story.
Oo. Cresta, that is economic violence, and that is covered by the VAWC. The VAWC is violence against women and children, no, and their children. Oo. Kaya it very well fall under economic violence. Yun yung maganda dito sa sa VAWC, no? Ang daming shortcut It becomes a shortcut case for support, no? Kahit ang support ay covered niya. Kaya yun nga yung pinakamadaling ma-resolve, no, ng court kapag ang usapin lang ay economic violence. Tapos nag-order na lang yung court na suportahan o bigyan ng support yung mga bata. Ang maganda, it is a criminal case, no? Kaya mas natatakot kasi pag criminal case, may kaakibat na pagkakulong. Kasi kung civil case lang, doon ka lang sa family code at support yung hihingin mo, ay usapan siya ng pera. Kaya nga mas madalas ang ginagamit natin na legal tactics ay gamitin yung VAWC because it is a criminal case. Still, usapin ng support can fall under economic violence. Kaya pwede sampan ng ganung kaso.
Okay. Salamat, Attorney Virgie. Before I turn over kay Leia, may last question ako kay Attorney Virgie. Yes, Doc. May comment pala si Doc.
Suggestion. Ako na muna bago ikaw.
Yes po, Doc. Ikaw po.
Okay. This with regard to the slide presentation earlier on online pornography. Narinig ba ako? Okay ba yung audio? Okay. With regard to online okay. With regard to online pornography, I think it's being okay, Miss Lisa. Anyways, with regard to that, na sinabi kanina na okay lang na yun kasi hindi naman nahahawakan. Hindi po yun okay. Hindi po yun katulad ng sasabi nating hit show ng Netflix na it's okay not to be okay. Hindi po talaga yun okay because it would.
Doc?
Wala si Doc.
Parang hindi yata na-catch ni Doc na miss yung pre-present ni Miss Lisa.
Doc? Nagets ko yung yung question mo, pero ang sinasabi ko po kanina ay ito po ay myth, no? Hindi po dapat na...
Hindi nga, may suggestion na lang ako. Yun nga talaga yung tama yun. That's why my suggestion would be, we have to step up on our awareness raising. We should change paradigm. Kasi yun nga ang kaisipan myth nga yun, pero it persisted. So dapat we have to change that. We have to change the paradigm and let's educate the parents that it's not good, it's not okay, because it has an impact on the psychological aspect of the girl, and they will grow up to have a difficult personality, to have psychologically scarred condition, and psychological trauma later in life. So, yun lang po. Gusto ko lang that we're going to change the paradigm of with regard to that aspect.
Yes,
Thank
Doc.
you.
Yes, Doc, I agree with you po. Dapat naman challenge natin yung mga ganon na pananaw, yung mga myth yan. Hindi dapat
Yes.
siya na nagpe-persist. Dapat i-challenge natin, sabihin natin na hindi tama ito. Mag-cause ito ay talagang nakaka-cause ng harm, ng damage, no?
Tama po.
May I add, Doc, nabanggit ko yata yan sa recommendation ko kanina na dapat turuan rin yung mga magulang, no, how to treat, how they value their children. Kasi kahit nga hindi nga nakakawakan yan, pero yung psychological and detrimental effect, long term, yan, no, hanggang mabubuhay na yung bata, andyan na po yung impact niya. So kung hindi man nag-manifest ngayon early age hanggang sa kanyang sa anak, may yan, may effect po yan. Kaya nilagay po natin yung pretong recommendation.
Yes. Isama natin yung din sa awareness raising natin.
Hindi nila pag-aari yung kanilang mga anak at hindi sila nahahawakan ay okay lang.
Oo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we get questions from regional offices or from outside participants?
Hello po, excuse me po. So there is a deaf raising her hand po for question. Is it okay po to ask question from receive question po from the deaf? Okay lang po.
Yes, recognized.
Hello po, I'm Lona. So I'm a deaf po.
Yes.
So most of Filipino deaf women po. Okay po, again po, I'll introduce myself. My name is Rona. So thank you po kay Cresta for inviting me here to hear about the discussion on women, violence against women and children. And I've learned a lot po. Last week po, so meron pong Filipino women deaf health awareness or strength wellness check po for deaf women. And then we found out po dun sa forum na dahil marami rin pong deaf na nag-join, I think nasa around 300 po ata yung nag-join. Tapos nag-share po sila ng mga stories nila at we found out po na ang dami nga pong nangyayari na abuse din po specifically for Filipino deaf women. So my question po for every one of you, meron po bang ang CHR po ba meron pong
nandun ka lang, Mama?
Meron po bang naka-assign sa CHR specifically for province, okay po, for mga regional offices po to help Filipino deaf women po around the Philippines? Kasi po sometimes we want to report pero we don't know where and who to contact po, specifically po sa CHR. So meron po ba kayong may recommend na information po for us to makakontact po or contact person for reports? And my second question po, and I want to ask CHR, so paano po kung i-include natin, for example, ang education natin sa school in terms of raising awareness? So what about deaf children po? Kasi marami rin pong mga deaf children nang walang access sa ganitong awareness. Kasi marami pong mga deaf, alam naman po natin, marami mga deaf ang nakaka-experience din po ng abuse. And ayun po, paano po natin ma-improve yung education po for deaf students or mga young deaf po natin? That's my question po.
Siguro on behalf of the CHR, ako na lang magre-respond nun quickly. CHR, meron kaming regional offices and meron ding mga focals working on the issue of persons with disability and also with women's issues or gender. So, pwedeng malapitan talaga ang CHR if you seek legal assistance or complaints. And part din sa aming mandato is to highlight issues of women with disabilities and make recommendations sa government para maipakita na isa talaga siyang gap. And I think that's also the reason why we invite and we make our seminars accessible. Meron talaga kaming sign language interpreters because we know na maraming mga nasa deaf community ang nagiging biktima ng online sexual violence and they would need more awareness campaigns like this. So siguro for children, si Miss Bing yung magsasagot doon. No? And then I'll turn it over na kay Leia for wrap-up session and messages.
Para sa nagtanong, thank you, no? Parang ito yung ngayon, yung pinagtutuunan ng Child Rights Centers, no? Yung pagiging inclusive ng education, ng mga bata sa Pilipinas. So, we're working with, children with disability, yung tawag namin. Tapos, may advocacy ngayon na ongoing dyan, para maging inclusive. Pangalawa, yung education na mismo, curriculum po, no? 2019, meron na pong ginawa ang DepEd po, no, na parang guidelines, policy guidelines na paano tuturuan na increase yung awareness ng mga bata, lalo na yung mga nag-aaral. Pero totoo po yun, no, may recognition na pagdating po sa pagiging inclusive sensitivity ng ating educational system, curriculum, marami po pa po kailangan. At ngayon po, we're working with I think we have yung Northfield, may partnership po kami dyan para sa pagsasaayos ng mga advocacy at mga agenda para matugunan yung mga gaps at mga pangangailangan ng mga children with disability. Siguro contact kami sa inyo para pa mapagyaman yung mga guidelines or concrete recommendations to the concerned line agencies na pwedeng gawin ng CRC, CHR.
Okay, wala nang
thank you po.
We'll close the panel for questions. Wala na, di ba? So, to wrap up, information and communication technology is double-edged sword to women and girls. Di ba nasabi na natin, binahagi kanina ni Ms. Lisa, na maraming opportunities yung nilalatag ng information and communication technologies. It offers greater opportunity for education, entrepreneurship, and employment. It levels opportunity and experience across genders. It also serves as platforms for advocacy, information dissemination, capacity building, and networking. And basically, it amplifies women's voices. Now, ito yung platform para mas maipahayag ng kababaihan yung kanilang mga karanasan na hindi kaaya-aya, particularly yung violence against women and girls. So, with the use of these tools, at the same time, it perpetrates violence against women. There are different forms of VAWG that arise with new ICTs such as cell phones, internet, smartphones. The same goes with societies. As we undergo political, economic, and this time around, pandemic, it also changes aspects of our lives. So women and girls are at risks in normal circumstances, in streets, in schools, in homes, but they are also at risk online. Maliwanag yon. So saan pa sila ligtas at malaya, no? Sa karahasan. In all spaces of interactions, in private spheres, in public spheres, or in virtual spheres, they are at risk. So, sa nalatag kanina ni Attorney Virgie, kailangan to break the silence of violence. Kailangan i-challenge natin yung kultura na nagpapatahimik sa atin para magsampa ng kaso at mag-access sa justice na karapat-dapat. May mga challenges at maraming kailangan pang i-address. Yun yung napag-usapan natin. So, hindi sapat yung mga mechanisms, hindi din sapat yung batas. So, nasa state at sa atin, sa bawat isa sa atin yung kung paano i-address ang issue na ito. Yun yung ating napag-usapan for the day. Yun yung wrap-up ng ating discussions. So, tawagin ko na si Dr. Basas, yung Director ng HR CMO, to give his closing remarks. Doc?
Yeah. Okay, malagang salamat, Leah. Maraming salamat. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Maayong hapon, good afternoon. I'm excited to deliver the closing statement of this important activity titled Violence Against Women and Girls, Exchanging Manifestations and Contexts. Why excited? Because just imagine, for the past 5 months since the start of the pandemic, most of you, I have only seen you, most of you now, especially Attorney Twyla, Leah, being Krista. Just imagine, I've seen you March of 2020 and it's up to now that I'm ngayon na ulit tayo nakita online, pabuti may online. And it's good that you invited me here. Okay, so we have reached the conclusion of this afternoon's activity, and I'm sure that collaborative efforts contributed to our deeper discussions and raised perspective as regards the subject matter. This initiative is timely as we are facing the at present the very challenging environment brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. How VAWG, violence against women and girls, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Consider this. According to the UN Women.org, and I quote, when women and girls do have access to the internet, they face online violence more often than men, and women and girls are subject to online violence in the form of physical threats, sexual harassment, stalking, Zoom bombing, and sex trolling. End of quote. So with the community quarantine and the lockdowns in effect due to the pandemic, people are forced to stay at home, including, of course, women and girls. So the high probability of violence being committed against them, and it will become more pronounced and manifested. So, as we have seen from our discussions, we've proven that through the discussions by source persons. So we have a very good output. So what comes next? What are we going to do next? Okay, moving forward, the best move is to document, monitor, as mentioned by our resource persons earlier, and report on the implementation of this initiative. As a national human rights institution, the CHR is mandated to protect and promote the human rights of all Filipinos, especially the vulnerable, disadvantaged, and the marginalized sectors of our society. And as gender ombud, the CHR is mandated also to investigate human rights violations against women and girls, including those committed by the private institution and the private individual, and to monitor compliance, so the word monitor again, and recommend appropriate measures for effective implementation. So it's very clear that the outputs of this Kwentuhan would contribute to monitoring, investigation, and legislative policy formulation. So in conclusion, the Kwentuhan has laid the groundwork for actions to deal with effectively with the VAWG. And sabi nga kanina ni Attorney Twyla, bitin daw and she wanted more discussions. At ang sabi naman ni Attorney VAWG, gustong-gusto niya talaga itong topic na ito. So I think there's another one for this coming paging the organizer. Again, I would like to thank you all for this output. Again, thank you to the organizers, the Center for Gender Equality and Women's Human Rights, headed of course by our energetic and informed officer in charge, Attorney Twyla Rubin, and of course the Human Resource Development Division of the CHR, represented here by Ms. Jean Evangelista. We would like also to thank the Secretariat for the hard work, and of course our resource persons, Ms. Lisa Garcia, the Executive Director for the Foundation for Media Alternatives, our very own Maria Victoria Bing Diaz, our child rights advocates and DMO for staff from the Child Rights Center of the Human Rights Center's Management Office of the Commission on Human Rights, and Attorney Virgie Laxa Suarez, our lawyer and a women's rights advocate. And not also to forget our facilitator for this afternoon, Ms. Leah Barbilla. Maraming salamat po. And in closing, I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to all the participants for your valuable contribution to this Kwentuhan. And not also to forget our interpreter. Yeah. Maraming salamat po. And thank you for your attention and stay healthy. See you later.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Doc. Thank you, Doc. Invite namin kayo sa sunod naming kwentuhan sa September 25 on Women in the Economy. Sana nandun kayo. We will be inviting speaker from ADB and from Center for Women in Development Studies. So sana nandun kayo.
Salamat po.
May we request po for everyone to open their camera para makapag-picture tayo.
Okay.
Open po tayo ng camera, if not naman shy. Ayan. Bagong haircut si Com Karen, so kailangan natin makita yan.
Oo nga po, bago.
Ikaw din, ano,
okay, first page muna. First page muna. Ang ganda naman ang post ni Rona.
Attorney Toy, ngayon ang ganda ng haircut mo. Ngayon ko lang nakita yan.
Next page po, second page. Loading pa, smile second page. Okay, I'm waiting for their pictures to load. Ka lang ha. Waiting pa. Smile. Yan. Yan. Teka lang ha. Wait lang. Okay, tapos third page. Third page. Di ko alam yung camera sa desktop. Meron akong medyo pagkaano eh.
Lalo naman ako, hindi ko alam yung maganon.
Hindi ko pa rin alam paano siya ginagawa. Kaya, ayan. Teka lang ha, I'm waiting for the last page to load.
Hi.
Okay, thank you po.
Hi, Kresta.
Bye. Good job, everyone.
Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you.
Women's Human Rights Center.
Thank you, Attorney Birch.
Ang ganda naman ng haircut ni Kong Karen.
Miss you guys. Till next time. Bye.
Para kung student si Ko.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Congratulations, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Salamat, Miss Jean. Salamat, Leia. Salamat, Miss Bing.
Attorney Twyla.
Picture na tayo,
Yes po, Ma'am Sai.
Thank you
Yung
po.
mga taga-Girl Scouts nandito.
Oh, very good
Yeah.
po. Gusto-gusto ko po
kami.
nandyan yung mga Girl Scouts.
Oo nga.
Yung mga,
Yeah.
when di natin nagawa yung ating event, Miss Bing, yung mga Girl Scouts, gawa tayo ng event.
Baka pwede kami mag-KKC. Karapatan
Minsan,
Girl Scout.
Meron po kaming mayroon kaming page, yung Together We Rise page. Nandun na yung nag-start na kami nag-launch ng activities natin, yung bawat region. GSP. I hope I can share them with you.
Ma'am, pasend naman ng link para makita mo monitor din namin.
Para po ninyo, para makadagdag po kayo dun sa inputs namin.
Okay.
Pwede din po mag-invite sa aming regional offices po. They're all here. Always welcome po.
Opo. Baka by October po, Miss. Sige po. Salamat po.
Congratulations. Salamat sa ating mga
From Visayas po, nandyan po siya, si Miss Aida.
Good. Hello po.
Mga Girl Scouts. Salamat po.
Thank you, KZ and Amy, for signing as always.
Thank you po.
May date na tayo for next kwentuhan. Okay na, Miss Jean. Salamat po. Si MJ na yung magbibigay ng mga certificates. Just send mail if you want to have certificates. Sa region, pwede per certificate of appearance kung kailangan.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Attorney Twy.
Happy weekend, everyone.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you po. Hi, Doc, sabi ni Cresta.
Hi, Krista. Bagay sa'yo yung haircut mo, Twy.
Oo nga, yun. Mukha ng little boy. Bye, I'll end this na. Baka di tayo matapos.
Okay, bye-bye.
Salamat, Miss Jean.
Close ko na po,
Okay po, sige po.
Okay, bye.
Okay,